start. First, thanks for having me here. So, I'm not sure if I was introduced or not. I suppose I was, but again, I'm Christian Corsano. I'm the lead online programmer on Hitman at Azure Interactive. And I'm here to talk a little bit about the game, what we did differently this time, moving it to a traditional game to something that is running online, basically a running online experience that we evolve over time. And how Microsoft Azure specifically helped us to do that. So, starting with Hitman, you probably know the game or the IP. It's been around for a while. It's been established by these 4 titles: Agent 47, Silent Assassin, Contracts, and Blood Money. And that's kind of the classical Hitman. Blood Money was really represented the pinnacle of the Hitman universe, where you play that bald guy, Agent 47, who is basically the best assassin in the world, killing people without anybody noticing. Then after Blood Money, Azure Interactive released Hitman Absolution. And Hitman Absolution was basically a more modern take on what Hitman was. It had more modern gameplay. It was a bit more playable for our fans. It was powered by the new game engine, Glacier 2, that was an evolution of the in-house Glacier 1 game engine. Evolution, to not say rewrite, because it's a very innovative engine with very nice editing capability. Hitman Solution also had an online component. Beyond simply having leaderboards, it also had contract modes. Contract mode is a game mode where you just play the game, and instead of being given a target to kill, you will actually be able to choose your own target, execute him or them, and then save that as a challenge for the community. That was very successful. Hitman Absolution was also more story-driven than the previous episodes of Hitman. That made it a bit less appealing for our core fan. We have a huge community behind Hitman, and what they loved about Hitman, they didn't necessarily find into Absolution. So that was a small disappointment from some of our community. Another thing about Hitman Absolution is that it was a fairly long development time. It took 5 to 6 years into the making. Of course, there was a new engine being developed, but it's still a very long time. And if you think about your gaming target, your consumer out there, it's an awfully long time to stay silent about a product. So that was 2 points that we wanted to improve a little bit, and that led us to Hitman. And I'm putting 2016 besides that because we released that last year in March, but it's just called Hitman. It's not called, it doesn't have a subtitle like the previous games. And you'll understand why, I think, at the end of this presentation. So we wanted to keep the best part from Absolution. Absolution was very modern, so we wanted to keep these gameplay improvements that we made for Absolution. But we wanted also to bring back more freedom of approach, bring back more of what made Hitman, what people liked about Blood Money, for instance. And we chose to develop and deliver it in a brand new way, in a pretty new way for any AAA game, and that's what we called internally Hitman as a service. We wanted to make Hitman an ever-expanding, ever-growing world of assassination. So we wanted to break out of that box product and maintain and evolve the game over time. It meant that the game we released has been digital first. We had no disc release at launch, which is pretty peculiar for a AAA game. We only released the disc last January, so pretty much 9 months into after the launch date. We made it episodic, and it was kind of controversial for our players, but by now I think we convinced why it works for Hitman, because each of our episodes is meant to be replayed over and over again and has a lot of depth to explore. And it was a nice way to introduce that to our player. It also allowed us to listen and react to the community. Every time we launched an episode, we had core feedback that we wouldn't have normally through user research. We had a game out there, and people were playing it and telling us what they felt about it. We wanted to have live content on top of that, meaning, well, to keep player enjoying and exploring these big locations that we're making, we added different game modes that we will add live every week. More importantly, Hitman as a service has been a paradigm shift internally for developers, for us, especially in the online team, because we had to spearhead that evolution, moving from having the product being done at launch, so basically where the launch is pretty much the end, not quite, you have a couple of patches, some DLC maybe, to having the launch being the start of the adventure, having the launch being where it all starts and when you will continue developing the service pretty much forever as far as we're concerned. So, this episodic and live component, how does that work? Our locations are released as episodes. Every month we introduce a new location. We had one in Paris, Italy, Marrakesh, Bangkok, Colorado, and then Hokkaido, Japan. They are designed for replayability. If you think of these locations, they are a mastercraft of level design. Our level designers are spending countless hours in making them the most deep location you can imagine. You can walk through Sapienza and Hitman and discover something every day for months. It's not a problem. And people are still sometimes finding things in our levels a long time after release. In addition, we have this additional live game mode. Escalation is target contract mode. Escalation is kind of an arcade game mode when you get to actually play a level first in a very simple way, and then for 5 levels, actually, we are challenging you with added complexity, like erasing camera tape or hiding bodies within 2 minutes, this kind of thing. So it's a very nice way of actually knowing what Hitman is about getting from a simple kill to actually a master class of assassination and a very discrete assassination. Elusive targets was one of our most successful modes for this game. It is the true Hitman experience when you go into a level, we spawn a new NPC on a new mission at a given time and keep that live only for a limited time. The key here is that target you can only kill once. So basically, once you kill and complete an objective, you can't replay the mission at all, ever. It's server enforced, which means that when you actually pull the trigger, you have the target in your crosshair and you pull the trigger, you feel it. It's pretty, you have some kind of adrenaline rush because if you pull that trigger, you can't replay it ever again. So that will be the unique way you kill that target. That works very well and it's very core to the new Hitman experience. Technically, our base game, so the Hitman game, is just a prologue. It's just a set of tutorial level. So that's how we distribute it. We have that ICA location, which is that fantasy silo training facility where players start. And that's what is the base Hitman game, along with the executable, the game itself. Each of the episodes is then packaged as a DLC, mostly because that's the way we can distribute it nowadays. So Paris is a DLC, Sapienza is a DLC, etc. And then these locations have been developed in parallel. Of course, Paris has been ready earlier than Sapienza, and Sapienza was pretty much done, just in bug fixing at the time we released Paris. But after that, we had some later locations that were in much earlier state of development when we launched the game. And that allowed us for some cool tweaks based on the community feedback. You can look on YouTube for Paris Puddle Pie. It's a video, you find at least 2 videos in there. One for Achievement Hunter, when they actually managed to accidentally kill 70 people in the same water puddle on Paris. And then there's another YouTube video a few months later where we actually added that narrative as an Easter egg in Colorado in a future location. So we're actually looking at what players are doing, and we are tweaking here and there small things like that to keep our community alive and because it's fun. So going to the core of it, the back end, if you build a game like that, you want to be able to evolve it over time, right? You don't know what's coming. You don't know what you will need after release. And we're talking about AAA game. It's hard to patch. Every time you patch, you need to go through submission for Sony and Microsoft to release on console. And Steam is not necessarily that easy either. So our idea was to work toward extensibility. The game is running server-delivered missions. Any contracts or missions, story mission, escalation, elusive target is actually delivered as a definition by the server. our menus are delivered by the server, which might seem weird, but what we figured out is that we were going to add so many content that we wanted the flexibility of exposing it in a better way over time, over the course of the season, and we did. So the menus are actually downloaded, the templates are downloaded from the server as well. We have game modes like Azure targets that are really driven by the server, even through their accessibility. So it means that our server has to be authoritative on a bunch of different features. One of them is scoring, because on Absolution we realized that we would have liked the ability to go back and tweak the scoring system, because something were not very balanced. So we wanted to be able to go back and change the logic without necessarily having to patch the game. Progression is driven by the server as well, because if you think about that ever-growing world, we wanted to engage our players over time, so we wanted their profile to live and evolve on the server as well. That's why progression is server-driven on Hitman. Contract creation as well, so that contracts mode is also the contract definition when you create a contract is pulled from what you did in the game, so it's based on the same system as scoring and progression. For backend, you also need some supporting services. You need to run analytics, you need to run authorization services, configuration services, some administrative web interfaces. So it's pretty important to be able to develop these services as well, because, well, you'll need them. And we chose to implement all of that on Microsoft Azure. All of it is running on the cloud, and it's running exclusively on Azure. So why did we do that? We'll manage a clicker, yeah. We are game developers. Our goal is not to build tech just for building tech. We want to build Hitman. We want to build online features for Hitman to make Hitman better. It means that we were looking for a solution that will not require us to maintain our own data center, obviously, or to even maintain software stack on top of VMs. We wanted something out of the box that we would just use and call into and pay only for what we use, basically. And Azure has been a platform as a service leader from the start. They started as platform as a service, whereas others looked at VMs and infrastructure as a service. And Azure is that ever-growing toolbox of cool stuff for developers. When we want to develop a new feature on the backend, we are wondering what is the access pattern for data, how much it will be called, and we usually look at the Azure offering and pick the right tool for the right job, the right tool to actually store our data, or the right tool to actually run our process or transform our analytic pipeline. It's also a very familiar toolset for game developers. I would say probably even more for AAA game developers, because we are pretty much all using Visual Studio and on C++ most of the time, and we are using C# for tooling most of the time as well. A lot of studios are doing that, which means that if you need somebody to help with the backend, you have a very fast onboarding process to pull them into Visual Studio and C# and develop on Azure. Of course, Azure supports other languages, but I must say it's pretty comfortable to use Visual Studio and C# to develop on it. So I won't detail all of that. This is kind of the catalog of what we used so far on Azure. We have this is what is in production right now. This is what the Hitman backend currently is using. We are using some other stuff like Azure Function internally, and we are playing with new services as they come. So I'm hoping this slide will be available if you want to refer to it later. So of course, running in the cloud, you want scalability. You want to be able to scale up when you have a peak of player connecting to your service. We tried at least to have our service being scalable by design by using an actor model. I won't get too technical into this presentation, but I did a course last month at DevGam. And the video is online with you on YouTube with diagrams and that kind of stuff. So if you want to look more into that, you can look that up. We're using Microsoft.Ru for that, and again, I'm talking more about that in the previous presentation. And it's been working well for us, having that model. It's much more cost efficient because we can scale up separately web front-end and workers. We use auto-scaling a lot, so we are primarily deployed on cloud services, which is kind of an old-school service in the Azure offering. It's been there for a long time now, and it's we use that because it's working very well with our all-in setup. We also use app services, which is when you need something that is closer to a pure web app. So when you need to deploy something like an ASP.NET web application on iOS, it's better. These are managed service. We don't manage a VM. They are offered for the specific use that we have. And then we have a configuration to auto-scale it. So when we reach a certain threshold, it will just pin a new VM and the distributed system will scale. I go quick on this because I think I'm running already a bit late on my slides. But we use services that are scalable by default, like Azure storage, especially table storage, is very good to actually store user data. You pay per transaction, or actually per hundreds of thousands of transactions, I think. And basically, it is a very simple and like single access pattern type of storage. It's a key value store, very simple key value store, but it's extremely efficient and performant. We use Cosmos DB because we used Document DB. Cosmos DB is very new. It looks very cool. We can't wait to use it more. It's that kind of a distributed, geo-distributed database that handles document store, graph storage. I think there's relational as well. So that's kind of a potential game changer. We will look more into this. This is like 2 months old, I think. We have also some services that are fully managed, but we are manually scaling, which means that if we need more power, we are just choosing a higher pricing tier for a while and then downgrading it. Another service that we are not using is Azure Service Fabric. We are not using it because we're using all-ins and we have our own setup, but this is kind of the new cool way to actually deploy something on Azure. You make your little actors, your little code processes, and you just deploy that on a scalable cluster. And it handles migration, versioning. It looks like a very great product, except we were already done with our implementation by the time that came online. Analytics. So I won't explain why analytics is a good thing. I mean, anybody in this room should be convinced of that. But we are not even monetized on Hitman. We do not have microtransactions. Well, we still need KPIs. We still need to know our retention rate. We still need to know what our users are doing in the game and if they stick around with us or they leave, right? We also can use gameplay feedback. We put tremendous effort and time in building these clockwork of level designs that are the Hitman location. And we want to know if, well, players are not playing it or not going in that location or another. And it also helps us to investigate any issues that the user might have. Our analytic pipeline is custom. We are not using an off-the-shelf solution, mostly because we want that flexibility of actually going in and looking at the data for instance, we have 3D environment. We want to be able to build heat maps from that, right? So this is a collection of tools that we use. We're collecting the events, passing them through to different stream analytic jobs to just fog the data in different way. We even pipe back some data into our game service to do trending information, that kind of thing. And everything is orchestrated with Data Factory, which is a very nice tool for that. And it gives us this kind of data. This is this guy's information from our first tutorial level. And we had to take a closer look at this because we realized that our players were not playing the tutorial as we imagined they would. So we went in, looked at our 3D data, looked at how players were doing in that tutorial, and we found out that we could guide them a little bit better because Hitman is a very hard game. It's very punishing at first if you don't know what you're doing. So we want a good tutorial to bootstrap player into the experience. So looking back, we've been live for something like 15 months now. We released in March 2016. We had more than one client update per month. So if you consider the work that you need to do to release something on console, that's a pretty tight schedule. We had even more server updates. So we are deploying regularly our code on the servers as well. We had live content coming out every week. So we really managed to keep that game alive for the past year. We learned a lot. When we launched, our automation processes were not quite ironed out yet, but that's what happened when you have to launch a game. We improved it a lot over the months. We learned also that operating on a live product is very different than operating on a box product. Anything you do to patch a game might have consequences on earlier levels, and you need to take that into account. We had pretty nice anecdotes about that, with player having being used to a bug, and then we fix it, and they're really disappointed because we fixed it, but they didn't know it was a bug, basically. We managed to keep player engaged. That was a key learning. That live experience, people stick with it. They just keep coming back. So that was very interesting for us, because it meant that we were doing something right. So looking forward, we have a new update this month that will probably be announced what is in it very soon, so you should keep an eye if you're interested in Hitman. It will be very cool. We are working on more content. Again, this is now a platform. This is no longer like a single box game. We want to build on top of this product for any time being. So we will add content, we'll add features, and we hope to continue making what we've been hearing was the best Hitman game ever made. So if you have any question, please come and ask. We'll also be available after the session if you just want to grab me at the conference and ask more questions.